and thank you everyone for joining us for the webinar today. The topic of today's webinar is project housekeeping using the Revit Express tools. I'm guessing everyone has worked in a messy project at some point, and today I'll show you how to use a handful of the Express tools to help identify and resolve many of the common issues that regularly occur on projects. So let's take a quick look at the agenda. The first thing I want to talk about is actually some changes we've recently made to our suite architecture. And from there, we'll dive right into cleaning up the Revit project. As we work through the project, as Ben mentioned, be sure to chat in any questions you have, as well as we'll collect those and answer them after quickly going through our upcoming webinars and events at the end. So first, let's take a look at some of the recent changes we've made to our suite packaging. As of yesterday, we're now offering our tools at 2 levels, free or paid. Previously, we had 2 paid tiers for each suite, Premium and Ultimate. So a total of 3 different package levels: the standard tools, which were free, the Premium, and the Ultimate, which were both paid. In order to make the decision-making process easier and to simplify our messaging, we've consolidated to just 2 levels. At the same time, we've modified our installation packages. They now install tools for 2013, 14, and 15 simultaneously. This means it's even easier for administrators to deploy and manage our software. All of the free tools are still free, and the tools from Premium and Ultimate are now offered together in that paid suite. If you have any questions about these changes, please don't hesitate to contact your sales representative. All right, so today we'll be utilizing a handful of the free and paid tools from both Manager Suite and Project Suite to do a little cleanup in a Revit file. These tools will be the View Creator, Quick Select, the Dimension Checker, Import and Link Manager, Project Cleaner, Spreadsheet Link, and also a beta preview of Type Swapper. It's a not yet released tool. It's currently going through some beta testing, so we'll give you a sneak peek at that. So this particular Revit file can use quite a bit of love. It's got everything from elements on wrong worksets to imported CAD. And so let's switch over to Revit and get to cleaning. All right, great. So the first tool that I want to take a look at is our Dimension Checker. This is available out of our Manager Suite. It's one of the paid tools. What Dimension Checker does is it will parse through a project and identify dimensions that have certain overrides set. So on the left-hand side of the Dimension Checker dialog, we have the ability to set up some filters as we look for dimensions. So we can either look for dimensions using the actual value, or dimensions. In this case, I'm going to go for dimensions using the replace with text function. So below that, we can get a little bit more specific. So if we wanted to look for dimensions that specifically had prefixes or suffixes or text above and below, we can go ahead and check those checkboxes, and it'll narrow down the search results through as this gets returned from the project. So there's an option to match all fields. So if you're really looking for something specific, you can do that. And then we can also search for dimensions that have specific characters or phrases in the dimension string itself. So, but in this case, we're going to go ahead and do just a simple replace with text search. And before I do this, I want to show you what we're looking for here. If I draw a dimension, we'll just go from here to here. If I draw a dimension and I double-click on this, it's going to bring up that dimension override text box. And one of the things that happens occasionally is that people will abuse this replace with text function. Now, some of you may be saying, hey, if you type in a dimensional value here, Revit's going to yell at you. And that's true for the most part. If I type in 64 feet 6 inches and hit OK, Revit's going to say, hey, please specify a descriptive text. This is not used to change the dimension, or you can't override with an actual dimension value. But some super sneaky people might do something like this and put in an invisible character at the end of this dimension string. And when I hit OK now, Revit's going to accept this value with no argument. So at this point, I've got a 64 foot 6 inch dimension, which is actually a 64 foot 6 1/4 inch dimension. Now in this case, it's a fairly minor difference, but these are the sorts of things that could add up. Or if I were to actually grab one of these lines and move them for some reason, the dimension string is going to stay the same, even though my dimension is now significantly different than it was before. So this is this is something that we want to identify and resolve at the project level. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go back into Dimension Checker, and we're going to go ahead and just run a search for any dimension using that replace with text option. So I'll click search. It's going to plow through the project here, and it's going to find any dimension using that function. So down at the bottom here, you can see off my existing site plan, here's that 64 and 6-inch dimension string. So here's the replace with text value. Here's the actual value, and obviously this is an issue. In this case, I know right where that is. It looks like I've got another dimension in here that has this override configured. It looks like it's on the 3rd floor. So let's go ahead and locate that dimension. So to do that, I'm going to select this out of my list and use the show button. And what that'll do is it'll go ahead and open up that view and then zoom in on the dimension. So here's that dimension right here. And at this point, I can go through and correct this issue. So I can say I want to use the actual value and hit OK. And that will remove that now from my list, as this is now using the real 3D model dimension value. So again, the dimension checker is just a really nice way to quickly search through the project and identify potential issues. So in this case, this is actually for these other ones here where we've got replace with text values of a room. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on there. So we went ahead and used the show option again to zoom to that view. I'm going to close dimension checker and take a look. And down at the bottom here, it looks like somebody overrode the actual text value of each one of these to indicate these rooms. So in this case, this might be a way to identify a training issue. If they're unsure how to tag a room in elevation, for example, perhaps they were using this as a workaround. So again, a nice way to just kind of get a quick feel for what's happening with the dimensions in your project, identify where those dimensions exist in the project, and then quickly resolve the issue. Okay, the next tool that I want to take a look at is our Import and Link Manager. What Import and Link Manager does, I'll go ahead and open it up. Import and Link Manager is going to scan through your project and find any instance of either imported or linked CAD, SketchUp, Revit, image files, anything that's been imported or linked into your project. And it's going to show a line item for each one of those instances in the main window here. So these are the names of the imports or links. And then I've got some additional columns of information running across Import and Link Manager, which are going to tell me sort of what's going on with each one of these items. So for example, first and foremost, we have the element ID of each of these, which is nice. If anybody has ever had to track down imported or linked CAD in their Revit file before, that can be quite a task. Having that element ID makes it very easy to go ahead and find those things. So the next column is going to show the insertion method, so whether or not it's a link or an import in this case here. So links and imports. It'll show you what workset it's on, and we'll circle back to that in just a minute. We also have the host view, the type of file, whether or not it's pinned, the link location, the file size, and the status. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work through Import and Link Manager to do a little bit of cleanup here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to identify whether or not anybody has copied CAD around in this file. As most of you know, CAD imports, especially if they have complex lines that Revit doesn't know how to interpret natively, can be a real drain on project performance. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and sort this by name, and I'm going to look for things that are appearing more than once in the list. So in this case, I've got some DWGs. It looks like this combined shows up multiple times, but you can also see that it's been unloaded, so we'll come back to that and clean that up. But moving further down the list, we've got accessible parking.dwg. So this here screams that we've got imported CAD being used in a way that could be replaced with native Revit objects. So let's go ahead and find this CAD and see what we can do with it. So again, I'm going to select this accessible parking.dwg, and I'm going to choose to show object. When I click on this, it's going to zoom in on this in the Revit file. And let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. So it looks like somebody has gone ahead and imported a symbol for this accessible parking stall. And this is actually a CAD object. Now, I believe there's a Revit detail that we can use instead of this. And so in this case, what I would want to do is go ahead and find these elements and remove them from the project and then replace them with the actual Revit objects. So this is a great way to find whether or not CAD has been copied around in your project very quickly and easily. Okay, so let's pop back into Import and Link Manager here, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at link worksets. So that's one of my columns here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and sort this by insertion method. So I want to see all my links. Toggle that, look at the other way. So here's all my links, and what I want to do is just check the worksets to see actually let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit, because we've got quite a few unloaded unloaded CAD files here that we can probably clean up. So let's go ahead and grab these unloaded CAD files. Looks like this 34th Avenue combined file is showing up a whole bunch of times. Probably don't need that anymore. So let's go ahead and remove that. So I'm going to go ahead and control select these from my list and just choose to remove them from the project. Okay, excellent. So at this point, we've gone ahead and cleaned those up. So there's a nice way to go through and just clean things that are no longer needed. So let's see here. These can probably be cleaned up as well. These are all unloaded, so I'll grab these and remove them as well. All right, great. So what I want to do then is take a look at the work sets of my links. So here I've got several links that appear to be, so these guys here are actually view specific. All of these guys here are on actual, they're in the project itself, so they've been linked into all views, and they're currently being assigned to the architectural elements workset, which is not where I'd want these. At CTC, we recommend creating an X-Link CAD workset or something to this effect, so that your CAD items can be turned on and off easily. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to shift select these elements from my Import and Link Manager window, and I'm going to go ahead and use the change workset function and just assign these to my X-Link CAD workset. So a nice, quick, easy way to go ahead and clean those up. All right, well, we have this sorted in this way. The next thing that I want to show you is that you can use Import and Link Manager to verify your link locations. So over here, we've got our linked file location, so it's pulling out where this link is being sourced from. And you can see most of these are coming out of my X drive. So a network drive that's, in this case, it's right next to my project file. So this is exactly what I'd want. This top file, however, is coming off of actually my desktop in this case. Yes, you got me. I broke this before the webinar, but we'll go ahead and fix it anyhow. So here I've got this on the C drive. What I want to do is go ahead and reload this from the X drive. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the swap reload from function. And this will allow me to browse out to the actual file out on the X drive and replace that link. So we'll go out here. We'll grab, this is 00M01. So I'll go ahead and grab that CAD file and choose open. And we'll leave this as a link. We'll go ahead and hit OK. So we've just swapped the location that this guy is coming from. Complaining about the hatch files in the CAD file, that's okay. All right, great. So at this point, we can verify that we don't have anything else coming off of a user's desktop or perhaps a network drive that might not be accessible to all users on the project. All right. So another really nice function in here is the ability to toggle the pinned status of your imports or your links. So what I might do is sort this by pinned status. Apparently we can't sort by that one here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and sort by insertion method. And we'll grab all of our links here. And what I want to do is go ahead and pin these links. I'm going to shift select, and we'll go ahead and toggle the pin status using my pin and unpin option. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these links just to make sure that these aren't going to be sliding around on me. All right, great. So we actually got quite a bit done here out of Import and Link Manager. We were able to identify copied CAD in the project. We were able to verify the work sets of the links, toggle the pin status, inspect the link locations. This can also be used to swap an import for a link. So if I had something that was imported, let's scroll through and see if we can find a good, we'll sort by name here, find a good import. So like this guy here, this front desk. This is a DWG that's been imported into all views. And this might be something that we want to identify or take a closer look at anyhow, but we can go ahead and use this for our swap reload first. So again, we're going to swap this from an import to a link. So we'll use our swap reload from, and again, I'll browse out and find that. I'll grab my front desk here. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and change the insertion method from insert to link. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. And it'll go through, swap that guy out, and at this point, front desk is now a link. But let's take another look at that, because a front desk DWG, that's suspicious to me. So let's go ahead and show object. Take a look here. I think that's I think it's just outside of the crop region here. There we go. So here's our front desk .dwg. Again, this is probably not some. This looks like a very large CAD file for geometry that's not even inside of my building itself. So this is a great item that we can identify and remove. Okay. So again, import and link manager, great way to identify anything that's been imported or linked into your project. And then you can quickly, by using the sorting functions up top, take different looks at the imports or links to find out whether things need to be pinned or if they're worksetted correctly or anything like that. So this is a really nice review tool to just kind of get in there and take a look at what's going on. All right. The next tool that I want to take a look at is actually our View Creator tool. And this tool is actually, the primary function of View Creator is to go through and to cleanly create new views in your project. This is something that I've covered in other webinars, and I'm not actually going to go through the process of creating new views. But what I do want to do is show you our workset review function out of View Creator. What this allows me to do is to quickly create 3D views that have filters configured to show me only elements from certain worksets. And so this is a great way to go through and review workset usage in my project very quickly and easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of my worksets in the project, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new view for these. So I'm just going to call this workset review as my prefix for the view name. So it's going to take workset review and then append the workset itself to the end of the name. So I'll go ahead and choose create views. Oh, apparently we already have these. Hang on a minute. Go ahead and yank these guys out quick. So let's recreate these. So we'll go ahead and do View Creator, Worksets, Workset Review. We'll select all, and we'll go ahead and create these views. So here we have 8 new 3D views created. So I'll go ahead and close this out. Close out of View Creator, and we'll go ahead and take a look at some of these 3D views. So for each of my worksets now, I'm going to have a workset review view. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take a look at, let's poke into architectural elements, which is our sort of catch-all workset. In this case, I can go ahead and zoom in my 3D view and see all of the stuff that's been assigned to architectural elements in my project. And this is a really nice way to kind of go through and see sort of what's in here and what could possibly be assigned to a more appropriate workset. So in this case, looks like I've got some furniture objects out here, some chairs, some plumbing fixtures, just all sorts of stuff. And by having it in this separated workset review view, I'm able to quickly select things and assign them to the proper worksets. So in this case, maybe these are FF&E elements. I can do things like select and do a select all, and then move those to the appropriate workset. Again, this is FF&E. What I might do though is I might pair this up with another tool that we have, which is our quick select tool, to allow me to quickly grab more than one element at a time from this category. So in this case, what I might do is use quick select. What quick select does is, for anybody familiar with quick select from AutoCAD, it's basically the same thing but for Revit. What quick select allows you to do is select elements out of your Revit project in a more robust way than simply doing like a drag in a 3D view and then a filter. With those, I can filter down to the category level. With a tool like quick select, I can actually dig in and find not only elements by category, but also by parameter values or any other value that I want to sort by. So in this case, what I might do is just do a quick select for furniture. And I'll just leave this as a default and click yes. I'm not gonna dive into it any deeper than parameters or anything like that. But I'm just gonna go ahead and select my furniture. And from here, it looks like something must be in a group, so that's not gonna work. But I can go ahead and I might be able to figure out which ones of these are in groups. Oh well, that's okay. So, but it's a nice way to go ahead and quickly select elements that share certain properties. So we'll just do a little bit more cleanup here. I can grab my columns. What is this here? A folding wall panel one side. Okay, so this is probably a core and shell element, so we'll go ahead and move this as well. So again, the nice thing is that with this filter, as I assign things to the proper work set, they're going to drop off of my 3D view. Okay, so let's dive into Quick Select just a little bit more. There's a lot of other things that we can do with that tool. And one of the things that I want to show you is sort of cleaning up project browser organization. In this case, I've got a fairly large number of views here in my project browser, and they're really not organized any further than the default organization. So if we go ahead into the View tab and take a look at the user, the browser organization, right now they're being organized by this default phase, which, if we take a peek here, is just sorting it by phase and then by family and type. While this is okay, there's certainly some room for improvement here. So if I wanted to group like views together, what we typically do is we recommend a slightly different project browser organization. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what we usually do. And what we do is we add another level of organization, which is just a text-based parameter assigned to our views. And what this allows us to do is to punch in whatever categories we'd like to help further organize the views in the project. So in this case, I'll go ahead and toggle over to the CTC view organization method. And you can see all of these are going to show up under the question marks right now because that view type is not being defined for any of them. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and use our quick select to quickly grab certain subsets of those views and assign them to the proper grouping within the project browser. So here what I'll do is I'll go ahead and grab my views first and foremost. So I'm going to say I want my views category. And then I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive in this case, and I'm going to say for the view name, I want to find anything that contains, let's do option 6 in this case. So I'm going to hit OK, or I'm going to hit select here. What this is going to do is select any view that has option 6 in the name. So you can see I've got 7 views here associated with option 6. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that view type parameter value, and I'm just going to set this to option 6. So I've got several design options in this project. That's what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and set that option 6 view type. And when we toggle back over to the project browser now, my plans are going to be a little bit better organized here now. I'm going to have all of my option 6 views organized under an option 6 project browser organization node. So, and this is something that I can do repeatedly here. So I could run through that same process and organize. Let's perhaps grab all of my basement elements. So I can say quick select, and again we'll go for views, and we'll grab the view name contains basement. Select. Again, in the properties, it looks like I've got 7 views that contain basement. So here we'll go ahead and for the view type, we'll go ahead and say basement. So when we take a look again in the project browser, looks like, I apologize. I goofed up my selection here. What I had done was instead of replacing my selection, I had appended to the selection. So what I should have done here is appended the basement, or I should have used the replace current selection with basement. So let's try this one more time here. We'll go ahead and do views. View name contains basement, and we'll replace the current selection with that and choose select. So at this point, I've got 7 views. And it looks like for whatever reason it's grabbing the same views here. So, but in any case, you get the idea. We're able to go through and select the elements or select the views in my project. Oh, it's selecting these because the view type, I must have grabbed view type contains basement. So it's going through and selecting the views by the property values and then or name values, so we can pull for name parts, and then we can assign those to the specific project browser organization that we want. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. The next tool that I want to show you is our spreadsheet link tool. What spreadsheet link does is it will extract data from the Revit model to a spreadsheet. Once that data is in the spreadsheet, we're able to then manipulate the data in some way and then push those changes back into the Revit model. So in this case, an area where I might use this is if you've got perhaps more than one parameter in your project that's being used to define the same thing. So this is something that can happen if you don't have great communication on your project team, or maybe there's just somebody who's used to doing it one particular way. They'll create a parameter to host a certain piece of data. Little do they know they've got somebody else who's using a completely different parameter for the same purpose. So in this case, I've got on my first floor finish schedule, I actually added a second parameter here. So for my room floor finish, the bulk of the project here is using this floor finish parameter. But in this case, I also happen to have a room floor finish parameter. So these are really 2 parameters that describe the exact same function. And what we're going to do is use spreadsheet link to consolidate this data. Now I could certainly come through and say, carpet. I could type this in manually and enter these one at a time. But that's going to be a lot more time consuming than letting Excel do the work for us. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that would work. We'll go ahead and fire up spreadsheet link here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my rooms category to start here. So we'll grab rooms. I'm going to add that category to my list. And what it's doing now is it's parsing through the Revit project and finding out what all the rooms are, what all the parameters that exist on the rooms are, and adding that to my list. So in this case, at this point, I need to go ahead and select the parameters that I want to work with. So here I've got my floor finish parameter. I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then I also want to find that room floor finish and add that. Now, that schedule is being filtered to look only at level 1, so let's do that here as well. Let's go ahead and on the filters tab, we'll add a filter for just the first floor. And so now we can go ahead and take a look at our spreadsheet here. Oh, and let's see if there's anything else I can do to filter this down just a little bit more. That should work. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we've got our 2 columns worth of data. And here you can see all of the carpets are showing up on the room floor finish, and then all my actual finishes are showing up under the floor finish. And so what I might do here is I can simply do a copy paste of these elements from one side to the other. So in this case, maybe what I'll do is I'll sort this a little bit, and I'll sort this by room floor finish. So that'll group all of my room floor finishes together, so I can see which ones have values in that parameter. So you could quickly do a review here and see, are any of these going to be conflicting? And if they are, we'd have to go through and reconcile those differences. But in this case, it's pretty cut and dry. I can go ahead and grab all of these, and I'm just going to copy them from here and paste them over here. And then I will also go ahead and blank out the values on this parameter in preparation for removing this guy. So at this point, we've consolidated our data from the room floor finish parameter into the regular floor finish parameter. So what I can do is go ahead and apply this change to the Revit model. I'll click Apply, Active Worksheet, hit Yes. So here we've updated 45 rooms, and we'll go ahead and close this out and take a look at our schedule. And you can see at this point we have resolved this issue. So now I could go through and identify where this room floor finish parameter is coming from and yank this out of the project without fear of losing any data from that parameter itself. All right. The next tool I want to show you is actually the sneak peek of our upcoming type swapper tool. This is currently in beta and not publicly available, but it is something that that we're working on getting out as quickly as possible. The people that we've showed this to have been pretty excited about it. So what we're going to do is go ahead and launch TypeSwapper. And what TypeSwapper does, there's basically 4 functions in TypeSwapper. The first one here will go through and identify duplicate families in your Revit project. So this is something that will occur anytime, or it can occur oftentimes when using the transfer project standards function, for example. As it copies those families from one project into the next, if it finds one where the name conflicts, you end up with stuff like this, where you've got level head circle 1, level head circle 2, or IGD keynote 1. So it basically appends a number to the end of the family. And this is something that's really, really tedious to go through and identify where those items exist and then fix them. So what TypeSwapper does is, it parses through the project and finds all of these instances. And then in this dialog, it actually suggests changes for how to resolve that. Now, this is something that you can absolutely modify before we go ahead and actually apply these changes to the project. So if it's identifying something erroneously, like here, centerline 2, that's an actual line type that we may want to keep. So in this case, I can go ahead and choose no change. But for the rest of these, perhaps I want to keep them this way. Or I want to actually keep these swaps. So I want to swap brick standard 2 for brick standard. I want to swap level head circle 1 for level head circle. So at this point, what I can do is go ahead and click the swap button. Now I do have the option to optionally delete the duplicate families, so all of the families that appear on the left. So if I check this checkbox, it will actually remove them. But in this case, I'll go ahead and leave them in here. And this is something that I could come back through and clean up with the purge function later. So I'll go ahead and swap. And it just went through the project, identified all of the instances of one, and swapped them out for the other one. Okay, so the next tab here allows me to swap text types in my project file. So this is something that that perhaps some of you have run into before, and I think there's an example of it here. Yeah, let's see here. So 3/32 inch aerial versus aerial 3/32 of an inch. Which one of these is the correct text type? Do they use all of the same settings? This is sort of a real tricky problem to solve because, again, you can't do a select all and swap them. So the ability here to go ahead and identify what all the text types are and then map a change allows you to actually clean these text types up in your project so that you can then purge out the unneeded text type. So in this case, it's going to show you how many of these we have. So 3/32 inch aerial, we've got 378 instances of this in the project. And then aerial 3/32, we have 213. So clearly these are being used interchangeably when they shouldn't be. So in this case, let's go ahead and swap aerial 3/32 out for 3/32 inch aerial. So we'll go ahead and grab this guy here, and we'll choose to swap. And so what this will do is it'll tear through the project, it'll find all 213 instances of the wrong text type, and it'll swap it for the correct text type. Now, some of you may have noticed we have an approved checkbox on the side here. This is a function that we're still vetting out. We'll see if this makes it into the final version or not. This will essentially allow you to identify in advance which text types are the company standard. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So the next two functions here, the dimension styles and the line styles, are going to work much the same way. They're going to show you the list of all of the styles that exist in the project and then allow you to map a change for that particular style to something else and then simply swap throughout the entire project. So hopefully this looks like something that you guys would enjoy using. We definitely would appreciate any feedback that you might have even from this quick demonstration of it. Again, once this makes it through the beta cycle, this tool is intended for our manager suite in the paid tier. So if you have any questions about this, I invite you to chat them in. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. This is, I think, the first public preview of our TypeSwapper. So the last tool that I want to show you here is our Project Cleaner. This is one of the free tools out of our manager suite. What Project Cleaner allows you to do is to delete views, schedules, legends, sheets, and links from your project by simply checking a checkbox on your tree. So it allows you to go through and identify very quickly different types of views and remove them from a project. In this case, what I'm going to do is use the views on sheets filter here to sort my list of views by only the ones that are on sheets. So here it's going to show me all of the sheets, and if I expand this, it'll show me what view is on that sheet. But if I scroll down to the bottom, I'm going to have a not on sheet, not in a sheet category here. So here, once I expand this, I can see the 3D views, the area plans, the ceiling plans, the drafting views, and so on and so forth that don't exist on a sheet in my project. And so this is something that I can then use to go through and basically clean up these views from the project. So if I want to get out all of these options, say we've settled on our option already, and I don't need any of the rest of these, I can go through and quickly select this entire group of views that don't appear on the sheet. I can review this, so, oh, no, I need that fourth plan, or I need that first plan, right? I can go through and uncheck certain views in the list. But once I have these selected, then I can go ahead and choose remove. And what this will do is we'll see this list diminish significantly. I'm going to go ahead and choose remove. It's going to delete 33 views from the project, so I hit OK. And it just simply cleans those up. So it gives you a nice, easy way to go through and identify the views in the project and remove things that aren't necessary. Now this is also something that we recommend using both when receiving or sending out CAD files to consultants. So perhaps they're sending a file to you and you don't care about their views. You just need their geometry. Deleting the views from that Revit file can actually significantly reduce the file size of that Revit file, which will give you greater link performance downstream. So this is a tool that you can definitely benefit from on a semi-regular basis here. So, and again, this is one of our free tools. All right. With that, I'd like to go ahead and turn this back over to, well, let's go ahead and take a peek at our PowerPoint here. We'll take a look at our upcoming events. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Ben.
Thank you, Jeff. We want to let you know about Midwest University. We are currently looking for abstracts. If you would like to speak on a topic, please send those in. And upcoming webinars, August 6th, we're going to have a webinar about 10 tips to make the most out of your free 14-day trial of Revit Express tools. And now we can go over to the question portion of the webinar. And first question, Jeff, are your tools available in Revit LT?
Thanks, Ben. It's a good question. Unfortunately, add-ins are not supported in Revit LT, and so our tools will not be able to run in Revit LT. So that's one of the perks of purchasing the bigger, badder version of Revit.
This question is specific to Quick Select. Could you use this scheduling tool to perhaps force a scope box on a handful of views?
Yeah, I believe you could absolutely force a scope box on a selection of views. So it depends on how you would want to go through and identify those views, perhaps by view name or view type or any of the parameters on those views. But if you were to go through and select them using Quick Select, we should then be able to push a scope box on that, and we can go ahead and try this. Hopefully I'm not putting my foot in my mouth here. We'll give it a shot. So if we want to do Quick Select here, oh, excuse me, I better make sure I have a scope box before we do this. So let me just go back to a floor plan, and we will add a scope box. So here's my scope box 1. All right, good deal. So we can go ahead and do a quick select then. And let's select all of the views. So we'll grab views. Whose view type equals, that's not what we want. So just a type, type, that's what we want. So we'll grab floor plans and just choose select. And at this point, if we go over here, we should be able to, with all of these selected, we've got 24 views selected. I should be able to assign a scope box. I must have at least one view selected that is either ineligible for a scope box for some reason or something. Let's see. With this view here, can I assign a scope box? Yes. So let's grab area first. We'll see if we can do one here. Okay. So perhaps a view template or something like that was assigned. Let's try and grab all of the views whose name is who's a floor plan and whose name is first. So we'll go ahead and do views whose type is equal to floor plan, and we'll select, and then we're going to go ahead and run quick select one more time, and this time we'll go from the current selection views whose name contains first. Okay, so hopefully hopefully this will give us a grouping of views that can actually be assigned to scope box at once. So we'll assign that, and that may not be doable. So I'm not sure if one of my views just can't do it, or if you can't assign that scope box to more than one view at a time. That's a great question. We can certainly dive into that a little bit further after the webinar, and we'll include this with our question response on the way out. So if we figure out a way to do this, or if we figure out what's going on here, we'll go ahead and include that in our emailed question response after the webinar. All right, so Ben, next question.
This question is spreadsheet link specific. Can you explain the advantages or distinctions with spreadsheet link versus the Autodesk new Kobe extension?
Sure. So the Autodesk Kobe tool is really geared towards exporting Kobe values from your Revit project out into the Kobe spreadsheets. Now it does have some functions in there to help you set those values as well. The thing with Spreadsheet Link is that it's a much more open-ended tool. Really, Spreadsheet Link will allow you to export properties from virtually any Revit element to a spreadsheet. And once those properties are out there, you're able to make changes to the properties before importing them. So you could certainly use that to apply Kobe data. However, you could also use Excel functions, for example, to map values from one spreadsheet to another. This is something that we did. We had a large customer who had about an 8-page Excel document that had equipment values that had been recorded by somebody in the field. So somebody had walked around the building and was looking at the actual equipment itself and was recording things like serial numbers and installation dates and all sorts of various metrics off of those particular pieces of equipment. And the customer had to then integrate that data into their Revit project for basically to set the project up for facilities management. And so if they weren't using a tool like Spreadsheet Link, they would have had to have gone through their project and manually entered I think there's about 800 rows of data total. So it would have had to find 800 different pieces of equipment in their project and assign anywhere between 5 and 10 parameters per piece of equipment to the Revit objects. So there's quite a bit of data that was being pushed around or that needed to be entered. And so what we were able to do is use a couple of simple Excel formulas to match the elements in the Revit project to the rows of data in the spreadsheet and then import those changes, and we imported it in about 3 minutes. So, a significant savings of time, and that's something that you simply couldn't do with the Kobe extensions. And that's just one example of one of the many workflows that Spreadsheet Link really enables.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Here's another quick select question. Is the view type just a parameter that CTC uses in their content?
Yeah, in this case, that view type parameter was something that I had added, and that was a text-based parameter that was assigned to all the views. So it's just a project parameter that we added. We find that's a really nice way to give you a little bit more freedom in sorting and organizing the views in your project browser.
All right, I've got some type swap questions. Which suite option will type swap be included in, and when will it be available?
Yeah, the type swapper tool is going to go into our manager suite, and it's going to be grouped in with the rest of the paid tools. And as far as when it will be available, we don't currently have a release date. It's going through beta testing right now, so we want to make sure it's super solid before we go ahead and release it. So at this point, the release date is not set, but it should be sometime in the near future. I'll leave it at that.
And is there a tool available to swap out families? For example, if we started with out-of-the-box receptacle family, but now bought the EPP and want to use the electrical productivity pack receptacle family?
That is something that we've received multiple requests for, and at this point we don't really have a tool that's geared directly towards that particular application. What we're looking at doing, and again, this is not something that we do currently, but we're looking at doing is modifying our spreadsheet link to allow you to actually swap the family type. And so when that becomes available, that's certainly something we can let you know. But again, that's something that we're looking to add into Spreadsheet Link in the near future.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Jeff. That's going to conclude all the questions. We're going to stay on the line for a little bit longer if you have any further questions. And we want to remind you that we have a brief survey afterwards. And please, folks, if you could fill that out, it really helps us come up with new topics and just how we can help you best. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.